You won't believe what happened in a courtroom in downtown Chicago when 17-year-old Jamal Jenkins stood before Judge Thompson, accused of petty theft. The judge sneered at Jamal, doubting his intelligence and future prospects. But little did he know, Jamal had a secret that would change everything. By watching this video, you'll learn about the power of perseverance, the dangers of underestimating others, and the importance of staying true to oneself. So, stick around to find out how Jamal's story unfolds and what happens when the tables turn in an unexpected way. Jamal's life hadn't been easy. Growing up in a low-income neighborhood, he faced numerous challenges, but his mother had always encouraged him to pursue his education. She instilled in him a love for learning, and Jamal's hard work paid off when he received a full scholarship to Harvard University at just 15 years old. Now, 2 years later, Jamal was facing a judge who seemed determined to ruin his life. Judge Thompson glared at Jamal, his expression a mix of disdain and boredom. "So, young man, you're accused of stealing a pair of sneakers from a local store. Do you understand the severity of these charges?" Jamal stood tall, his voice steady as he replied, "Yes, Your Honor." The judge raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting Jamal's articulate response. Well. Look who's suddenly got a big mouth. You think you're smart, don't you? But let me tell you something, boy. You're nothing but a troublemaker. You're going down." Jamal's eyes narrowed, but he remained calm, knowing that the judge was trying to provoke him. The prosecutor, Mrs. Johnson, stepped forward, her voice dripping with condescension. "Your Honor, the defendant has a history of delinquency. We request the maximum sentence." But just as it seemed like the judge was about to deliver the final blow, Jamal's attorney, Ms. Rodriguez, stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to address the court." The judge nodded, and Ms. Rodriguez continued, "My client may not fit the typical profile of a Harvard law student, but he's not just any ordinary teenager. Jamal, would you please stand up and tell the court a little bit about yourself?" Jamal took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice filled with confidence. "Your Honor, I'm a 17-year-old Harvard University student, pursuing a degree in law. I'm also the author of 2 books on social justice, and I've spoken at numerous conferences around the world." The courtroom fell silent, and Judge Thompson's face turned bright red with shock and embarrassment. What did you just say?" Jamal smiled calmly. "I'm a Harvard law student, Your Honor. And I've been accepted into the Harvard Law School's early admissions program." The prosecutor's eyes widened in surprise, and she stumbled over her words. Your Honor, I wasn't aware of this." Judge Thompson slammed his gavel down, regaining his composure. "Order in the court. This changes everything." The judge's demeanor shifted from condescending to courteous, and he began to ask Jamal questions about his studies and interests. Jamal answered each question with poise and intelligence, leaving the courtroom in awe. As the hearing drew to a close, Ms. Rodriguez made one final statement. "Your Honor, considering my client's academic achievements and community service, we request that the charges be dropped." The judge nodded, his expression sheepish. "Motion granted. The charges are dropped, and I'm going to make sure to take a closer look at the way we handle juvenile cases in this courtroom." Jamal walked out of the courtroom, a sense of vindication washing over him. He had proven his doubters wrong, and he knew that this was just the beginning of his journey. But as he stepped out into the bright sunlight, he was met with a surprise that would change everything. A group of reporters were waiting for him, cameras and microphones in hand. "Jamal, congratulations on your victory in court today. Can you tell us more about your experience?" Jamal smiled, ready to share his story with the world. But just as he began to speak, a figure emerged from the shadows. A figure who would reveal a shocking twist that would leave Jamal's life hanging in the balance. "Jamal, I've been watching you from the beginning, and I have to say I'm impressed. But do you know what's really at stake here?" Jamal's eyes narrowed, his mind racing with questions. Who was this mysterious figure and what did they want? The figure smiled, and Jamal's world was turned upside down. "You see, Jamal, your case is not just about you. It's about the system, and the people who are trying to take it down." Jamal's eyes locked onto the figure, his heart pounding in his chest. What did they mean? And what system were they talking about? The figure's smile grew wider, and Jamal knew that his life was about to get a lot more complicated. Jamal's eyes never left the mysterious figure as they turned to walk away. "Wait!" Jamal called out, his voice echoing through the crowded hallway. The figure stopped, turning to face Jamal with an air of expectation. "Who are you?" Jamal demanded, his mind racing with questions. "My name is Marcus," the figure replied, their voice low and mysterious. "And I'm here to offer you a choice, Jamal." Marcus handed Jamal a small card with a single phone number on it. "This is the number to a secure line. If you're willing to learn more about the system and the forces that shape it, call this number." Jamal's eyes narrowed, unsure of what to make of Marcus's words. "What system are you talking about?" he asked, but Marcus just smiled. "You'll find out soon enough. But let me warn you, Jamal, once you take this step, there's no turning back." Jamal looked at the card, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. He thought about his experience in court, about the judge's condescending attitude and the prosecutor's skepticism. He thought about the power of education and the importance of standing up for oneself. And he thought about the mysterious figure standing in front of him, offering him a choice that could change everything. As Jamal stood there, weighing his options, Marcus vanished into the crowd, leaving Jamal with more questions than answers. Jamal looked down at the card again, his mind made up. He would call the number and he would learn more about the system and the forces that shape it. That night, Jamal sat in his room, staring at the card with the phone number on it. He took a deep breath, picked up his phone and dialed the number. The line rang several times before a voice picked up. "Welcome, Jamal," the voice said. "We've been expecting your call. Meet us at the old warehouse on 5th and Main at midnight if you're ready to learn the truth." Jamal's heart skipped a beat as he hung up the phone. What had he just gotten himself into? He thought about the potential risks and benefits, about the power of knowledge and the danger of the unknown. At midnight, Jamal made his way to the old warehouse, his heart pounding in his chest. As he approached the entrance, the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with rows of old crates and boxes. A figure emerged from the shadows, their face obscured by a hoodie. "Welcome, Jamal," they said. "We've been waiting for you. You're about to learn the truth about the system, and it's going to change everything you thought you knew." Jamal's eyes adjusted to the dim light, and he saw a group of people, all with the same determined look in their eyes. "What system are you talking about?" Jamal asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The figure stepped forward, pulling back its hood. Jamal's eyes widened in shock as he recognized the face. It was his former teacher, Miss Thompson, who had always seemed so kind and supportive. "The system we're talking about, Jamal, is the one that keeps people like you and me oppressed," she said. "The system that judges us without understanding us, that sentences us without compassion. But we're fighting back, Jamal. And we want you to join us." Jamal's mind reeled as Miss Thompson handed him a folder filled with documents and evidence. "This is just the beginning, Jamal. Are you ready to fight for justice?" Jamal's heart was racing, his mind made up. He was ready to take a stand, to fight for what was right. But just as he was about to respond, the sound of sirens echoed outside, growing louder with each passing second. The group exchanged nervous glances, and Miss Thompson's eyes locked onto Jamal's. "It seems we've been discovered," she said, her voice low and urgent. "We have to get out of here now." The group sprang into action, grabbing their belongings and moving swiftly towards the exit. Jamal followed, his heart pounding in his chest. As they reached the door, Miss Thompson turned to him, her eyes locked onto his. "Trust no one, Jamal. Not even yourself." And with that, the door burst open, and a team of heavily armed police officers stormed in, their guns drawn. Jamal's world went into chaos as he was grabbed from behind, his arms twisted behind his back. "You're under arrest, Jamal Jenkins," an officer shouted. Jamal's eyes met Miss Thompson's, but she was nowhere to be seen. Had she betrayed him? And what did she mean by, "trust no one"? Jamal's fate hung in the balance as he was dragged away, the sound of sirens fading into the distance. Jamal's world was a blur as he was dragged away, his arms aching from the tight handcuffs. He was thrown into a cell, the cold metal bench slamming against his legs as he fell onto it. The officer's words echoed in his mind, "You're under arrest, Jamal Jenkins." What was happening? Why had Miss Thompson disappeared? And what did she mean by, "trust no one"? As Jamal sat in the darkness, trying to piece together the events of the night, he heard the sound of footsteps outside his cell. The door creaked open and a familiar face stood before him. It was Judge Thompson, the same judge who had presided over his court case. But this time his expression was different. This time he looked concerned. "Jamal, I'm here to help you," he said. You're in grave danger. The system is rigged against you, and they're not going to stop until they silence you. Jamal's eyes narrowed, unsure of what to make of the judge's words. Was this a trap? Was the judge trying to manipulate him? But something in the judge's eyes told Jamal that he was genuine. What do you mean? Jamal asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The judge leaned in, his voice low. The system is controlled by powerful people who will stop at nothing to maintain their power. You're a threat to that power, Jamal. You're smart, you're determined, and you're not afraid to speak truth to power. They'll do everything in their power to silence you. Jamal's mind reeled as the judge's words sank in. He thought about Miss Thompson's words, about the system and the forces that shape it. He thought about the mysterious figure, Marcus, and the phone number that had led him to the warehouse. It all seemed to be connected, but Jamal wasn't sure how. The judge continued, I can help you, Jamal. I can use my position to protect you, to help you uncover the truth. But you have to trust me. Jamal hesitated, unsure of what to do. Could he trust the judge? Or was this just another trap? As he deliberated, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the cell again. The judge's expression turned grave. Time's running out, Jamal. Make a decision. Jamal took a deep breath, his mind made up. I'll trust you, he said, his voice firm. The judge nodded, a small smile on his face. Good. We'll get you out of here and we'll start uncovering the truth. But we have to be careful. They're watching us. Just as the judge was about to lead Jamal out of the cell, the door burst open and a group of suits stormed in. Judge Thompson, you're coming with us, one of them said, their voice firm. The judge's expression turned cold and he stood tall. You'll never take me alive, he said, his eyes locked onto Jamal's. In a flash, the judge pulled out a small device from his pocket and handed it to Jamal. This contains evidence of the system's corruption, he whispered. Get it to the right people, Jamal. Expose the truth. With that, the suits dragged the judge away, leaving Jamal alone in the cell. But Jamal knew he wasn't alone. He had the evidence and he had a mission. He would expose the truth no matter what it took. As Jamal made his escape from the cell, he knew that the final battle was about to begin. He would face off against the powerful forces that had rigged the system, and he would fight for justice. Jamal's heart pounded in his chest as he made his way through the deserted corridors, the evidence clutched tightly in his hand. He knew that he had to get it to the right people, but he also knew that the system would stop at nothing to silence him. As he turned a corner, he saw a figure waiting for him. It was Marcus, the mysterious figure who had set him on this path. Jamal, I've been waiting for you, Marcus said, his eyes gleaming with determination. You're the only one who can bring about change. You're the only one who can expose the truth. Jamal nodded, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. I won't let them get away with it, he said, his voice firm. Marcus smiled, a small smile. I knew I could count on you, Jamal. Now let's get the evidence to the press. Together, Jamal and Marcus made their way to the local news station, avoiding detection by the authorities. They met with a determined journalist, who listened with rapt attention as Jamal revealed the evidence. The journalist's eyes widened as she scanned the documents, her face set in a determined expression. This is explosive, she said. We'll get it out to the public, Jamal. We'll make sure the truth is told. As they prepared to leave, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. We have to go now, he said, his voice low and urgent. They found out about the journalist. Jamal's heart skipped a beat as Marcus grabbed his arm, pulling him away from the news station. Who's behind this? Jamal demanded, but Marcus just shook his head. Not now, Jamal. We have to get out of here alive. They sprinted through the streets, dodging pedestrians and cars. Jamal's mind reeled with questions, but he knew he had to trust Marcus. As they turned a corner, Jamal saw a black SUV speeding towards them, the windows tinted. Get down? Marcus shouted, pulling Jamal into a nearby alleyway. They hid behind a dumpster, holding their breath as the SUV screeched to a halt just feet away. The doors opened and a group of heavily armed men poured out, their eyes scanning the area. Jamal's heart was racing, his mind made up. He would not back down. He would fight for the truth no matter what. But as he peeked around the dumpster, he saw something that made his blood run cold. One of the men was wearing a familiar face, a face that Jamal had trusted with his life. Miss Thompson, his former teacher, stood among the men, her eyes cold and calculating. Jamal's world spun around him as he realized the truth. Miss Thompson was working against him all along. She was part of the system he was fighting against. Jamal's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment they just stared at each other. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance, but Jamal didn't care. He knew that his life was about to change forever. Jamal's eyes locked onto Miss Thompson's, and for a moment they just stared at each other. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance, but Jamal didn't care. He knew that his life was about to change forever. How could you? Jamal spat, his voice venomous. Miss Thompson's expression didn't change, but a hint of sadness flickered in her eyes. I'm sorry, Jamal, she said, her voice cold. But you're just a pawn in a much larger game. And pawns are meant to be sacrificed. Jamal's anger boiled over, but Marcus grabbed his arm, pulling him back into the alleyway. We have to go now, Marcus whispered urgently. They sprinted through the alleyway, the men hot on their heels. Jamal's mind reeled with questions, but he knew he had to trust Marcus. As they emerged onto the street, Marcus flagged down a taxi, and they leapt in, speeding away from the danger. Jamal's eyes scanned the rearview mirror, watching as the men gave chase. Who are they? Jamal demanded, his voice shaking with rage. Marcus's expression was grim. They're part of a secret organization that's been hiding in plain sight. They're the ones who've been manipulating the system, and they'll stop at nothing to keep their power. Jamal's mind reeled with the implications. He thought about all the times Miss Thompson had seemed so supportive, so caring. It had all been a lie. What do they want from me? Jamal asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's eyes locked onto his. You, Jamal, are a threat to their power. You've uncovered the truth and you're determined to expose it. They'll do everything in their power to silence you. Jamal's determination hardened. He would not be silenced. He would fight for the truth no matter what. As the taxi sped through the city streets, Jamal's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his heart skipped a beat. It was a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the old clock tower at midnight if you want to know the truth about Miss Thompson. Jamal's eyes locked onto Marcus's. What does this mean? He asked, his voice full of questions. Marcus's expression was grim. I don't know, but I think it's time we found out. The taxi pulled up to a stoplight, and Marcus nodded towards the door. Let's go. Jamal followed Marcus out of the taxi, and they disappeared into the night, determined to uncover the truth. But as they approached the clock tower, Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into a trap. Jamal's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the old clock tower, the text message's words echoing in his mind. Meet me at the old clock tower at midnight if you want to know the truth about Miss Thompson. Marcus stood beside him, his eyes scanning the area. I don't like this, he whispered. It could be a trap. Jamal nodded, but he had to know the truth. He had to know why Miss Thompson had betrayed him. As they entered the clock tower, the dimly lit room seemed to swallow them whole. A figure emerged from the shadows, and Jamal's eyes widened as he recognized the face. It was Judge Thompson, the same judge who had helped him earlier. You're the one who sent the text, Jamal said, his voice firm. Judge Thompson nodded. I did. I know you're wondering why Miss Thompson betrayed you. The truth is she's not who you think she is. Jamal's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Judge Thompson took a deep breath. Miss Thompson is part of the secret organization I was telling you about. She's been playing a double role, gaining your trust while reporting back to her superiors. Jamal's anger boiled over. Why are you telling me this now? Judge Thompson's expression was grave. Because I believe you're the only one who can bring down the organization. And I want to help you. Marcus stepped forward. But can we trust you, Judge? Judge Thompson's eyes locked onto Marcus's. You can trust me. I've been working to take down the organization from the inside. Just as Judge Thompson finished speaking, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the clock tower. It's them, Marcus whispered, his voice urgent. We have to go now. But it was too late. The doors burst open and a group of heavily armed men stormed in, their guns drawn. Jamal, Marcus, and Judge Thompson were surrounded. You're coming with us, one of the men growled. Jamal knew they were in grave danger. But he also knew he wouldn't go down without a fight. As the men closed in, Judge Thompson made a sudden move, grabbing Jamal's arm and pulling him towards the stairs. Follow me, he shouted as they sprinted up the stairs, the men hot on their heels. They reached the top of the clock tower, and Judge Thompson pushed Jamal towards the edge. "Jump," he shouted as the men closed in. Jamal's heart was racing, his mind reeling with fear. But he trusted Judge Thompson. He took a deep breath and jumped, the ground far below him. Jamal's stomach dropped as he plummeted towards the ground, the wind rushing past him. He had jumped off the clock tower on faith, trusting Judge Thompson's instincts. Time seemed to slow down as he fell, his life flashing before his eyes. But then he landed with a thud on a makeshift airbag cleverly hidden from view. The impact was still jarring, but it saved him from certain death. As Jamal looked up, he saw Marcus and Judge Thompson following suit, jumping off the clock tower and landing safely on the airbag. They quickly got up, brushing themselves off. "We need to get out of here now," Judge Thompson urged, his eyes scanning the area. They sprinted away from the clock tower, the organization's men hot on their heels. As they ran, Jamal's mind reeled with questions. "What's the plan, Judge?" he asked, his breath ragged. Judge Thompson's expression was determined. "We need to get to the safe house. We have evidence that can bring down the organization, and we need to get it to the right people." They finally reached the safe house, a nondescript building in a quiet neighborhood. Inside they found a tech-savvy individual who quickly got to work encrypting the evidence. "This will ensure it gets to the right people," the individual explained. But just as they were about to transmit the evidence, the organization's men burst in, guns drawn. A fierce firefight ensued, with Judge Thompson and Marcus fighting off the attackers. Jamal watched in awe as they took down the men one by one. But just as they thought they had won, Miss Thompson appeared, her eyes locked onto Jamal's. "You're a hard man to kill," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "But it's time to finish this." Jamal's determination hardened. He was ready for her. But just as the two faced off, the tech-savvy individual shouted, "I've transmitted the evidence. It's going live in 30 seconds. The room fell silent, and Jamal's eyes locked onto Miss Thompson's. For a moment they just stared at each other, the tension palpable. And then the screens around them flickered to life, displaying the evidence they had gathered. The organization's corruption was laid bare, and the public's reaction was immediate. The news spread like wildfire, with protests erupting outside the organization's headquarters. The leaders of the organization were arrested, and Miss Thompson was taken into custody. But as Jamal watched, a mysterious figure emerged from the shadows, their face obscured by a hoodie. "It's not over yet," they whispered before disappearing into the crowd. Jamal's eyes narrowed. Jamal's eyes followed the mysterious figure as they disappeared into the crowd. He felt a sense of unease, wondering what they meant by, "It's not over yet." But for now he pushed those thoughts aside, basking in the glory of their victory. The organization had been brought down, and justice had been served. As the news continued to spread, Jamal became a symbol of hope for many. He was hailed as a hero, and his name was on everyone's lips. But with fame came danger, and Jamal knew he had to be careful. Judge Thompson approached him, a serious expression on his face. "Jamal, you're not safe yet. The organization's tentacles reach far and wide. You need to stay hidden for a while." Jamal nodded, knowing the judge was right. He went into hiding, surrounded by a team of trusted allies. But as the days passed, Jamal began to feel restless. He wanted to know more about the mysterious figure and their warning. Was there more to the story than what they had uncovered? One night, Jamal decided to take matters into his own hands. He snuck out of the safe house, determined to uncover the truth. He tracked down a lead, following a cryptic clue that took him to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. As he entered the warehouse, he saw a figure waiting for him in the shadows. It was Marcus, the man who had helped him throughout his journey. But this time, Marcus's expression was different. He looked nervous, almost guilty. "Jamal, I need to tell you something," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Something that could change everything." Jamal's heart skipped a beat as Marcus paused, looking around nervously. "What is it, Marcus?" Jamal asked, his voice firm. Marcus took a deep breath. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm part of the organization. But I've been working to bring it down from the inside." Jamal's eyes widened in shock. "Why should I trust you?" he demanded. Marcus handed him a folder filled with documents. "This is evidence of my true intentions. I've been playing a double role, just like Miss Thompson. But I've been working to bring down the organization, not support it." Jamal's mind reeled with questions. Could he trust Marcus? Was this a trap? As he looked at the documents, he saw that they seemed genuine. But he knew he had to be careful. What's your plan, Marcus? Jamal asked, his voice cautious. Marcus's eyes locked onto his. We need to take down the organization's leader, the one who's been pulling the strings from behind the scenes. And I know where they are. Jamal's determination hardened. He was ready to finish what he started. But as he looked at Marcus, he knew that nothing was certain. Jamal's eyes locked onto Marcus's, his mind racing with questions. Could he trust Marcus? Was this a trap? But as he looked into Marcus's eyes, he saw something there that gave him pause. It was a glimmer of sincerity, a hint of determination. Okay, Jamal said finally. Let's do it. Let's take down the organization's leader. Marcus nodded, a small smile on his face. I knew I could count on you, Jamal. Let's get to work. Together, Jamal and Marcus hatched a plan. They would infiltrate the organization's headquarters, gather evidence, and take down the leader. It was a risky plan, but Jamal was determined to see it through. As they put their plan into action, Jamal felt a sense of calm wash over him. He knew that this was it, the final showdown. They snuck into the organization's security system, avoiding guards and cameras. Jamal's heart pounded in his chest, but he knew he had to be brave. Finally, they reached the leader's office. Jamal's eyes locked onto the man behind the desk, a man he had seen in the shadows for too long. You're the one, Jamal said, his voice firm. The leader smiled, a cold, calculating smile. I'm afraid you're too late, he said. The damage is done. The organization will rise again. But Jamal wasn't deterred. With Marcus's help, he gathered evidence of the leader's wrongdoing and exposed him to the authorities. The leader was arrested, and the organization's remaining members were brought to justice. As Jamal walked out of the organization's headquarters, he felt a sense of closure. It was over. The organization was finished, and justice had been served. Marcus stood beside him, a small smile on his face. You did it, Jamal, he said. You brought down the organization. Jamal nodded, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had fought for justice and he had won. But as he looked at Marcus, he knew that this was just the beginning. They had worked together to bring down the organization, and now they had a new mission: to rebuild and create a better future. What's next? Jamal asked, his eyes locked onto Marcus's. Marcus smiled. The world needs people like us, Jamal. People who are willing to fight for justice and stand up for what's right. We've got a lot of work to do. Jamal nodded, feeling a sense of purpose. He knew that he had found a true ally in Marcus, and together they would make a difference. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Jamal and Marcus would face it together as friends and partners in justice. The end.